Hey everybody, Psycho Schmuck here. About to do something a little bit different. Raider Bill and myself are going to test. We've actually done one test already, but we made a couple house rules and we tested once, and we're going to go ahead and test again. And this time we're going to do it actually on YouTube, so maybe we can get some feedback. So some of you guys can take a look at this and tell us what you think. So far, so good. Nothing's too broken, but only one test in, so we're going to kind of take it as it is. Just want to cover a couple of things on this test, and then we've also introduced a few other tech options to try to help spice up the game for some of the units that don't have any tech assigned to them. So I'll cover that here in a minute. This is just the intro video, and then we're going to do the YouTube game afterwards. I'll be playing Germany, Japan, and Italy, and Raider Built is going to be playing, obviously, all the allies. So we may not, if it turns out to be some of these things are broken, we may not fully complete the game, but we'll see how it is. If anything turns out to be too lopsided or something, we're just going to pull the plug on it. But the first and foremost is strategic bombers. The first thing is they cannot defend on the ground. Territories with only strategic bombers are auto-killed versus any unit with an attack value for more than one round. They can be taken as casualties. No change to strategic bombers for sea combats. All of their land combats are considered bombing runs, whether they're bombing a territory, factory, or base. So essentially, we thought about it that if you got a couple infantry in a territory and you're going to hit it with strategic bombers, there's not a whole heck of a lot that infantry are going to do with rifles and mortars and things like that against a strategic bomber flying over and dropping bombs to try to soften it up. So we kind of came up with this idea that strategic bombers essentially are doing bombing runs, whether they're bombing a factory or they're bombing a territory. If they can bomb a factory, why can't they bomb a territory? So, but their attack rolls are the same as before in the other BBR versions, the 2 at 2 for just the first round. So in territories where you're going to do a bombing run, if there are defending fighters, they can intercept, and those fighters defend at 4. You can send escorts into those territories with the strategic bombers that attack at 3 for those fighters to escort them. Again, just one round of interceptions, and after that one round, if there's any other land combat in the territory, it is conducted in general format. However, interceptors and escorts that survive the land that survive the interception round can join the land combat after the first round. So essentially, they're flying at high altitude, engaging with the bombers or escorting the bombers. Bombers fly off after round 1, and then the fighters and escorts, the interceptors and escorts, then engage in the combat after the first round. AA shots. So after the interception round, actually the AAs would fire first. The AAs against strategic bombers equals the number of AA guns present for land combats only with a maximum of 3 shots per gun. So what we figured is if there's a territory, say for example Manchuria, and the United States have a bomber nearby. There's no Japanese fighters in Manchuria, but there is an AA gun. American bomber could fly over that and take a shot. None of the units in there, if there are no planes, none of those units can shoot back, but the AA can. If Japan happened to have 2 AA guns in that territory, then they get 2 shots at that bomber. So it's literally, it's kind of that give and take thing for strategic bombers. Your strategic bombers can fly over territories and hit land units, and they can't do anything about it. It's a free pot shot, and they don't return fire. But conversely to that, instead of having, 3 or 4 AA guns and they only one actually gets to take a shot at the strategic bomber, every single AA gun in the territory gets to take a shot at it. So it might actually make sense to buy the occasional anti-aircraft gun to put in some territories. So again, this is in turns where you just don't want to do a factory bomb because you don't have any other land combats with your strat bombers. You don't really have any air transport moves for that particular turn. So it kind of makes sense to maybe have the strat bombers fly over and drop some bombs on the territory and see if you can pick off a couple guys. So again, the AA guns will be able to shoot back at those strategic bombers. Now, if it's in a territory where there's additional combat and other planes, each of those guns that took a shot at the strat bombers, and you decide if you want to do it or not, how many you want to take. But it does decrease the number of shots that those guns can take at the other planes before the normal general combat begins. So that might sound a little convoluted, but AA shots at strategic bombers are resolved separately from AA fire at fighters and tacticals. So the AA shots against strat bombers will happen first. The strat bombers are flying in before the ground forces and other air forces come in to attack. If there are no interceptions, then the AAs fire. If it's a territory that has, say, for example, one AA gun, that AA gun takes one shot at the strat bomber. Then it has 2 shots left, and the remaining 2 shots will be fired at the tacticals and fighters. So you got to roll them separately. So if there's multiple AA guns, if there's 2 AA guns, for example, in the same type of combat, there's 2 AA guns. Those 2 AA guns will fire 2 shots at the strat bomber, and then there'll be a grand total of 4 shots left. Because again, each AA gun can only take 3 shots. So if both of them took 1 shot at the strat bomber, the AA guns combined have 4 shots left. So those 4 shots would be taken, then rolled separately against the strat or the tacticals and fighters. That's pretty much it for strat bombers. People typically don't buy a whole lot of strat bombers. They usually buy maybe 1 to help with transport, unless you're getting heavy bombers, and then you might pump out more. So in our first test, there were no heavy bombers, so we didn't really see too much of an impact on that. I think I maybe did a few runs here and there, but it wasn't a whole lot of impact. So we'll see what happens this game. Ship changes down here. I think you can see that. Bombardments, we changed a little bit. We're looking at casualties do not return fire. So part of the logic of strategic bombers bombing a territory, instead of rolling 4s, you roll 2 2s. A little less accurate. Same thing with shore bombardments, a little less accurate. So battleships, instead of rolling 1 at 4, you're rolling 2 at 2, just like strat bombers. 1 shot, done. Casualties are removed immediately, don't shoot back. Cruisers hit 2 at 1. So battleships 2 at 2, cruisers 2 at 1. Super battleships shoot 3 at 2 instead of the old way of a 4 and a 2. So we just upped the die, 1 additional die. So very similar to the super battleships, the way they're set up now. So you're essentially adding 1 more die. So instead of a 4 and a 2, you got 3 2s. Anti-aircraft fire for ships. Battleships, cruisers, and aircraft carriers all get 2 AA shots each. In naval fights, I mean, if you keep in mind, naval fights, all the ships are in the same sea zone. All the planes are in the same sea zone. Battle of Midway, you got Japanese planes attacking the American carriers. You got the American carriers attacking Japanese carriers. So battleships, cruisers, and aircraft carriers get 2 shots of AA each. Super battleships and carriers both get AA hit on a 2 or less. So that part hasn't changed for battleships as far as what the super side for the tech. So they go up from 1 to 2. The other little thing that we tested, and it seemed to be pretty cool, not a whole lot of hits because it's AA shots at ones, but we did both attackers and defenders get to shoot AA. Again, so you've got sea zones that have both sides, ships in the same zone. So you have this opportunity for both surface ships. The battleships, carriers, and cruisers are going to shoot at incoming aircraft on both sides. So, but just again for the first round. So that's what we're doing for anti-aircraft, and transports no longer block movement. You know, I know that was kind of something in a debate, but pairing 2 still defend at 1. In order to auto kill or attack more than 1 transport, the ship movement must stop to do so. So again, if you are moving into a zone and you want to do an amphibious assault and there's a transport there, if you choose to kill it, then it takes away your bombardment if you choose to kill it. So, and I think the rule changed on that too, so that you have for each ship that's blockading, not blockading, but that is involved in a combat in a sea zone where you're trying to do an amphibious assault, it kind of works like blockade. So for each ship that is there trying to stop the bombardment, there's 3 surface ships, I believe it is, that it might be including subs too, that don't get to bombard. The remainder can. So transports, again, do not block movement. Transports, you know, we're sitting in a sea zone, ships sailing by, they might shoot that at them or maybe not, but they certainly weren't going to stop a combat naval vessel from moving on to its destination. So those are the house rules that we're going to test here in this game. Like I said, we already tested once. Didn't see any real glaring problems, not a huge impact, but it was kind of cool. So now we have our some of our tech options. Advanced cruisers, given the fact that now they can shoot AA. Advanced cruisers, this is what we're testing, and now we're dividing up all the techs. There's a grand total of 6 new techs here, but we're only going to test 5 of them. We just divided them up for each country, so we already know in the game whose techs got what, because we want to see how it works. Cruisers don't have tech. People don't typically buy cruisers. Now you might if it has AA. So, for the tech, if you choose cruisers, they can transport 1 infantry as cargo, and AA is increased to a 2 to hit, just like advanced carriers or super carriers and super battleships. So their AA goes to 2. Their bombards now go up 1 die, just like battleships. So they're now 3 at 1 instead of 2 at 1. And attacks are 1 at 3 and 1 at 1. So just like super battleships attack at a 4 and a 2, a normal attack, not talking about bombards, normal attack. So cruisers now attack at a 3 and a 1. So that's super cruisers or advanced cruisers. Escort destroyers. Destroyers don't have a tech. Destroyers now have 1 AA gun that can only allow 1 shot. They defend at 3 now. So the AA at 1 AA gun. Doesn't take more than 1 shot, though. It's only 1 shot. They defend at 3. They could transport 1 infantry as cargo. And they also cancel out the super subs ability to target select and first strike after the first 3 subs versus each destroyer. So, as you know, super subs, 1 destroyer cancels out 3 super subs. All the other additional super subs beyond that get to keep their target select and first strike capabilities, submerge, and etc. So, escort destroyers nullify that. Improved tactical bombers. Tactical bombers, another unit, doesn't have any tech. AA no longer removes their target select ability. They can target select for the entire battle, or they can use combined arms for the entire battle, but not both. So again, some of these might raise your eyebrows, but we're going to test it. We're going to see. We're going to tweak it. We just think that some countries are kind of pigeonholed into the same old tech, and we're trying to come up with some things for some units that don't have tech. So we might just crumple this up and throw this whole thing away, but we're going to give it a shot and test it. Half tracks, we're still kind of kicking around some options for that. Mechanized infantry kind of got the short end of the stick. They cost 4, they attack at 1, they defend at 2, they move 2, but they can't blitz unless paired with a tank. Artillery, attack at 2, they cost the same as mechs, and they can pair with an infantry, and they have a tech where they can move 2 and blitz with a tank, and they can support 2 infantry. So it's very lopsided against mechanized infantry. So we're still kicking around some ideas for half tracks. This one's not being used. Industrial infrastructure, minor industrial complexes get an additional unit of production per turn. So your minor complexes will now pump out 4 units max, and major complexes now pump out 12. The number of units you can rail from each of these complexes increases by 1. So as you know, the territories, it's the value of the territory is how many units you can rail. So that increases by 1. You can also now place a minor complex in a territory you own at the beginning of your turn that has a value of 1 instead of 2. UK's production of IPC limit in India increases to 20. Again, we'll see how this turns out. UK is the one that's going to use the infrastructure. Advanced cruisers is the Americans. Escort destroyers is going to be Japan this game. Tactical bombers is going to be Germany. And heavy artillery is going to be Russia. So, again, primarily Russia is the thing that kind of got us on this little kick about coming up with some other tech, because I'd say 80% of the time it's self-propelled artillery, and some of our guys in our play group have chosen heavy tanks. So, but I've never seen anything else. So again, it's almost always self-propelled artillery. Everybody knows this. So heavy artillery, I don't know if that's in screen or not, but not that you're trying to read this with me, but heavy artillery, attacking, not defending. Artillery can bombard 1 territory away at a 2 to hit for 1 round, but can't be used in any other combat and cannot move during non-combat if they fired. They can, however, move 1 space during combat move to a friendly territory to conduct a bombard. Casualties are removed from the game immediately and do not return fire. This is a special attack, similar to strategic bombing raids. Bombards are declared during combat move and are conducted before general combat dice are rolled. They also can support an additional infantry just as self-propelled artillery, if not bombarding. So, again, it's kind of cool to be able to sit back and just pot shot at the territory next to you. However, those artillery will not be able to support any infantry, and they're not going to be used to take any territory either. So it's only it's a little situational, but we're going to try it, see how it works. It's, again, another big option for Russia to take, potentially. So you don't lose your additional 2 infantry capacity. So you're taking away the movement capability in exchange for being able to take pot shots. So if bombarding is part of a ground assault, you cannot retreat the assaulting units until at least 1 round of ground attack or defender fire is conducted. So, essentially, you can't take a territory that has, say, 2 infantry in it and take 3 of your own infantry, but take 2 artillery and do your pot shots. As part of your combat move, I'm going to take 2 pot shots, and I'm going to move 3 infantry in there to attack those 2 guys. You can't take your 2 pot shots with your artillery and say, oh crap, I just missed, and now I'm going to retreat my 3 infantry and not attack those 2 guys. So, that would be broken. So if you commit during combat move to a land combat where you have artillery bombarding first, after your artillery bombard, then you have to go through 1 round of combat. So even if you had 4 or 5 artillery bombarding a territory and you're only sending in a couple infantry at, say, 2 or 3 infantry, and you miss all 5, which can happen, we've all been there, 5 twos and blank. So you can't then say I'm going to go ahead and retreat. You got to send those 2 or 3 infantry in against 2 or 3 enemy infantry, and you're probably going to lose that fight. So you got to at least absorb 1 round of losses if those artillery all miss. So that's pretty much it for that. So, man, this is a long video. Turn it to 20 minutes. Sorry for all the babbling. I don't even know if anybody even listened to this or watched this, but I wanted to do something at least explaining before the game starts. So that's about it. Looking forward to anyone's comments, feedback, and I might be turning Raider Bill into a psycho schmuck himself. So after doing this. All right. Take care, guys.